All right, guys. Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Back for our monthly AMA. And today's AMA, actually, let me get on Instagram real quick here before I start talking to you guys. Okay, I think I'm live on Instagram as well. Okay, so anyway, back for our monthly AMA, which AMA stands for Ask Me Anything, for those of you who don't know. But basically, we do a Q&A once a month on the first Tuesday of every month at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. And we answer whatever questions you guys have related to investment banking recruiting. Now, today, this Q&A is actually quite timely because for those of you who, especially if you're a sophomore, meaning you're the class of 2024, for those of you who haven't been paying attention, yesterday, RBC Capital Markets actually opened up their summer 2023 applications. Okay, so, for most of you that want to get into investment banking, obviously the most important internship for you to get is the one during your junior year summer, right? And so if you're a class of 2024, that means that your summer 2023 internship is the one that's going to determine whether you actually get the full-time offer or not. So that application just opened up for the summer of 2023, like I said, for RBC, right? And so what does this mean? It means that it's time to get serious about investment banking recruiting if you're a sophomore, okay? Now, obviously, that's not a reason for you guys to freak out, right? Hey, what's up, Dodek? Good to see you again. That's not a reason for you to freak out if you're a sophomore right now, but what it does mean is, you got to start putting things in motion. You got to start preparing to the best of your ability. Just to put your mind at ease a little bit, last year, RBC was also the first bank to start their application process. In fact, RBC has been the first bank to start the application process for the summer internship for the last 3 years in a row, possibly longer. I've only been tracking this diligently for the last 3 years because that's kind of how long Wall Street Mastermind has been around. And every year, RBC tries to go out before everyone else does. And, last year, they actually went out even earlier. They went out on September 25th, right? This year, they went until October 4th. And I was joking with my clients that, it's actually, they're being nice by starting later, tongue in cheek, of course. But last year, they started on September 25th. But the vast majority of the other banks didn't actually, like the first big wave of banks that actually opened applications after that was some of the bulge bracket and elite boutique banks who started in like mid-January. Okay, so like a huge group of banks all started like the same week in mid-January. So does that mean that the next group is going to also start in mid-January this year? No, not necessarily. But like I personally think that like every year recruiting happens a little bit earlier than the previous year. Like that's been the trend for the last probably 10 to 15 years without fail every single year, right? And so if last year most of these banks started their summer internship applications in mid-January, this year I would expect it. This is just an educated guess, but again, we're extrapolating. I would expect this year for things to start a little bit before that. Now, obviously, like end of December, early January is kind of like the holiday period and a lot of people aren't working. And so, if I had to guess, I would say like right after New Year's, or if it's before that, then I would say like right before Christmas, right? So that's just our educated guess here, don't hold us to it. But what that means is, it's October 5th today, and you basically have, let's call it 3 months, right, to get everything in a row, to get ready. And, it's not a lot of time, right? Because if we really think about all the things that you guys have to do, if you want to be a legitimate investment banking candidate anyway, you need to obviously keep your grades up in school. Ideally, above a 3.7 is no questions asked. If you have at least a 3.5, that's okay. And then if you have at least 3.0, that's like the bare minimum. You have less than a 3.0, like you're probably not getting into banking. Okay, and I say that from experience because after working with hundreds of students, like the lowest GPA we've been able to get someone into banking with is a 3.0, right? So you want to keep your grades as high as possible. That's number one. You want to continue to build out your resume. That's number two, right? So with relevant internship experiences or extracurricular activities, even with internships, you can continue to do internships this semester, right? Both this semester and next semester, and also sophomore, something like you can do a new internship every semester, and like you could do 3 new internships a year probably if you wanted to, 3 to 4 even, right? Because each internship would be 2 to 3 months. Not that you have to do that, but I'm just saying that's what you could do, right? So continue to build up your resume. Start networking with bankers if you haven't already, because like once these open up, you don't want to wait until the applications are open to start doing these networking conversations, right? Like that's a little bit too last minute. And a lot of times it takes a while just to get people to even respond to you, right? And so start networking now. Try to line up those referrals as much as you can, and then nurture that relationship until it's time for you to apply, right? And then you also have to do your interview preparation, right? So your behavioral interview prep, coming up with all the stories that you want to use to answer a variety of questions that they typically ask, and then also the technical interview, which obviously you got to know your accounting, your valuation, your mergers and acquisitions, and your leverage buyouts, right? So those are like probably like the 4 or 5 things that I would be focusing on between now and when investment banking recruiting starts, right? And like that should keep you very, very busy. Like you probably shouldn't have a whole lot of free time for much else. Okay. And so that's kind of like a high level overview, but I see some questions already starting to come in, so I'm going to dive into that. If you guys have questions, drop them in the comments today. We're right now on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, we're also on Facebook. Both are on our Facebook page and in our Facebook group, and we're on Instagram. So if you're in any of those places, feel free to just drop a comment with whatever questions you have, and I'm just going to go through them in the order that they're received. And I'll try to get to as many of them as we can over the next hour or so. Okay. While we're waiting for those comments to show up, I'm gonna just like kind of for those of you that are new, I'm gonna walk you through just like a high level of what it is that we do here at Wall Street Mastermind, so you have a sense for why you should even listen to what I have to say today, right? So for those of you who don't know what Wall Street Mastermind is, basically we help students like you recruit for investment banking jobs. Pretty much like anything that's related to investment banking and recruiting, we can help you with. Okay, and so like those 5 areas that we just talked about earlier, like aside for like helping you raise your GPA, which obviously like we can't take your classes and do your homework for you, but like everything else, whether it's your application materials, you're building up your resume, to networking, to behavioral interviews, to technical interviews, like we help with all of that. Okay, and we've worked with probably over 400 plus students at this point over the last 3+ years since we've been around, and we've been very successful. Like the students that have actually finished going through our program and done all the work that we asked them to do, over 90% of them have successfully secured an investment banking offer, right? And collectively, as a group, our students have received offers from every single bulge bracket and every single elite boutique bank out there. Okay, so that's kind of what we do. So we know a thing or two about just like what it takes to get these jobs. Okay, it's actually quite formulaic. All right, so like if you know what to do, like investment banking doesn't have to be super complicated. Like I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it can be simple, right? It'll never be easy, but it can be simple. It can be simple where you don't have to do a lot of trial and error and a lot of guessing. And so if that's something that you guys are interested in, you guys can feel free to reach out to us after this Q&A, and we'd be happy to talk to you. Okay. In fact, what we're doing now, before I dive into the Q&A, what we're doing now is before you even talk to us, we're giving you guys an opportunity to do like a virtual coffee chat with an upperclassman who has already gone through our program has successfully recruited for one of these jobs, like one of these successful alums that I just told you about. And it's just like a free networking opportunity for you to have a virtual coffee chat with them, talk to them, ask them for whatever advice you want about recruiting because they just went through what you're about to go through. And then, of course, you can ask them about Wall Street Mastermind too if you want to. And if after that you still want to talk to our team and you're interested in like potentially working with us, then you can reach out to us, right? And if not, then that's okay. Then we don't want to waste anybody's time. Okay, so that opportunity is available to you. You guys, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn right now, you should be able to see a link in the description of this video. But if you're on Instagram, you don't see it, just go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply, and you'll be able to book one of these calls. Okay. With that said, one last thing, guys. We just launched a free course, actually. Okay, we launched a free course for the first time ever. It's completely free. You don't have to pay for anything, and we included different modules and included trainings that are straight from our paid program, which walks you through all those different areas that I just talked about, including your resume, your networking, your technicals, your behaviorals, stuff about the investment banking recruiting timeline. We also included like a recording of a mock interview in there, so you can watch like how we do mock interviews with our students. One of our top students, actually, because we wanted to give you a good example of like what you can emulate your own interview skills after. And so like this guy totally crushed recruiting. He's going to one of the top groups at Goldman or Morgan Stanley. Like I won't reveal what bank it is, but it's like top group at one of the top banks. All right, so you can kind of like watch that mock interview and see like, hey, how do you stack up against someone like him? Because that's basically who your competition is. Okay, so if you guys are interested in that, you should also see a link for the free course in the description of this video. If you're on Instagram, then you won't see the description, but you can go to our website, and then at the top on the menu, there is actually a link that says free course, and then it'll allow you to go and grab a copy of it. Okay, so if you're wondering why we're doing this free course, it's because one, we just want to we can't help everybody, and so we want to basically help more people, right? And there are a lot of people who maybe don't have the financial resources to pay to work with us. So this is just like a free thing that we're doing for everybody. And the other thing too is obviously for people that are considering working with us, quite frankly, there's a lot of noise out there and people who try to disparage us, whether it's competitors or even just students who maybe don't use our program or haven't used our program or can't afford our program for whatever reason. And they try to discourage other people from using our program by saying things about us that are not true, like calling us a scam and all that. And so this is our way of showing you, almost like you can take us for a test drive to see like, hey, do we actually know what we're talking about? I also get a sense for like how we actually teach this stuff inside of our program. Okay, so again, it's absolutely free. You guys should all go download that. It's going to hopefully help you a lot, regardless of whether you end up working with us or not. Okay, so with that said, enough about us. Let's dive into some of these questions that have built up in the queue. Okay, so I'm going to first start over here on Instagram. Stanley Ty asks, I got into a boutique M&A firm. How can I leverage this? I'm off cycle and they're letting me work year round. Yeah, I mean, Stanley, I'm not sure what you mean by how can I leverage this, but like that's great that you got a boutique M&A firm on your resume, by the way. So congratulations on that. I'm not sure what year in school you are, and also I'm not sure. It sounds like you might be in the UK because you're mentioning off cycle. But like the way you leverage that is just do the best job you could possibly do on this internship. Try to get as much deal experience as possible. Make sure like when you're doing the work, I mean, one, ask for as much responsibility as you can, because sometimes depending on the internship, they might not give you a lot of work, and then sometimes you're just like sitting around twiddling your thumbs or whatever. Like if you don't have anything to do, you should go ask for more work. Right? The other thing is like when you're actually doing the work, don't just do the work, because a lot of times you're under time pressure and you're not really thinking about what you're actually doing, right? But that's not going to be useful for you if like you later then have to talk about it in an interview. So what you should be doing is really like thinking about what's being put onto these slides that you're helping out with, or these pitch books or presentations that you're making, right? Actually read through it afterwards to see if like you understand and can digest what your senior bankers are trying to convey to the client, right? And then you want to internalize this and be able to speak to it as their own knowledge, okay? A lot of times people say, oh, well, I didn't build a model, or I didn't actually like do this part of the analysis or that part of the analysis. I wasn't responsible for the comps. Like I just helped out with some basic company profiles. Like, can I still talk about those things? Yes, absolutely. You can. You worked on the deal. That means you can talk about it, right? And nobody actually is going to know whether you did this part or that part, or if you did the comps or the precedents, or if you did the profiles. Like, you don't have to get into the weeds like that. Right? Of course, like it has to be realistic. You're not gonna say like you did all these things that are typically the responsibility of like the managing director or something, right? But if it's something that's like the responsibility of a junior banker, if it's something that's typically being done by an analyst, and you say that you were the one who you at least helped, that's not far-fetched at all, right? So that's what I recommend you do. Also, what I recommend too is like depending on how far you're recruiting, I always recommend people keep a record of the stuff that they worked on from work. So whether that's like a printout of the final product, like the pitch book that you worked on, or like the printout of the outputs from the financial models that you guys looked at, or sometimes like I mean, you probably shouldn't email yourself a copy because a lot of firms are sensitive about having the soft copy flowing around out there. But like hard copies usually are fine, or if not, like you can maybe take a picture or something. Obviously, not telling you guys to violate confidentiality because in investment banking, and so do not disclose like confidential client information to anybody else. But just like keep this to yourself for your own studying purposes. Right? A lot of people don't do this, and then they leave an internship, and then they like say like 3 months later, 6 months later, they have to recruit, or they're trying to recruit, and then they're trying to like remember what they did, and they're trying to see like how they can talk about their responsibilities from the internship, and then like they don't remember any of it, right? And that's the worst because then it's already on your resume. Your interviewers are gonna see it. They're gonna ask you about it during the interview, and some interviewers they'll actually like go pretty detailed and actually grill you on very specific numbers. And if you can't answer their questions, then it makes it seem like you exaggerated or lied about what you were doing, even though you weren't actually doing it, right? So just make sure you have like some sort of copy of your work saved down. That way you can always be prepared to discuss this in more detail for your recruiting, okay? So hopefully that helps, Stanley. And then I guess, Barnarica, you asked, does RBC sponsor international students? You know what? I'm not sure. So what I would recommend is going and checking their job posting because it's already up on their website. I actually haven't looked at it in detail, but I just know it came out. Usually if they don't sponsor, they will explicitly say that you need to have the ability to work without sponsorship. But if they don't say that, then I would still try to like confirm that by just like through your networking efforts and talking to either the bankers or the people in the HR department. Okay. So hopefully that helps. Stanley says, I built one deck ground up on myself, currently a senior. I graduated in the fall of 2022. Yeah, okay, so Stanley, like that's great. Everything I said still applies. 3.23 GPA, maybe we'll squeeze out 3.5 non-target school. Yeah, so you definitely want to raise your GPA as high as possible. And in terms of being from non-target school, obviously that makes things a little bit harder. And the fact that you're a senior also makes things a little bit harder because there's going to be fewer and fewer opportunities. A lot of the full-time jobs for 2022 have already been filled, at least at the bigger banks, at the bulge bracket, elite, boutique, and middle market levels, right? So, but that's okay. There's still a lot of other banks that you can recruit for. In fact, like for our clients or seniors, like when they come in, what we do is we have like an entire database of over 1,000 investment banks. A lot of them are like the smaller, more regional level, and you should just some of those are still really solid banks, and you should try to get into the best one you can. Which really just to like how quickly you can get the offer, because the sooner you get the offer, typically like the less you're scraping the bottom that it's going to be, right? And so like if you can get into like if tier 1 banks are bulge bracket and elite boutique banks, and tier 2 banks are let's say middle market banks, those are like the top 50 banks right there. And then let's say like everybody else, let's call it regional boutiques, that could be anywhere from like tier 3 to tier 10. Okay, so if I were in your shoes, what I would kind of do is get into the tier 3 bank, because then like for 12 months tier 3 bank, you can always try to make the leap up to a tier 1 or tier 2 bank, right? But going from like a tier 3 bank to a tier 1 bank is a much easier thing to do and a lot more realistic than to go from like a tier 7 bank to a tier 1 bank, right? Like that's too big of a leap, right? So for you, like time is of the essence. Okay, so just make sure you're being efficient with everything you're doing, And if you want to accelerate things even more, again, like I said, feel free to reach out to our team. We've helped a lot of sales before. Okay. Another question on Instagram here. Austin Cicino asks, what are the main valuation methods that an IB enter with? Yeah, this is a good question. So the main valuation methods you should be familiar with are trading comparables, precedent transactions, as well as discounted cash flow. Okay. Those are the three main ones. Of course, there are other valuation methodologies out there, but typically for investment banking interviews, unless you're interviewing like a very unique group, those are the standard valuation methodologies. Okay, like some people would consider the leverage buyout to be a fourth valuation methodology, and so maybe know that as well. But that one's a bit more advanced. Okay, hopefully that helps, Austin. So let's go over here to LinkedIn. Then we have Jonathan asking, where's the best place to see internships open for summer 2022? Yeah, Jonathan. So we track this internally for the students that are in the program, but that's inside of our programs like the Facebook group. So you kind of have to be in a program to be able to see that. Other than that, I'm sure there are other. There might be other websites that also track this type of information. I just don't know because, we don't use them and I haven't needed to. So we basically maintain this for our own students. Okay. But aside from that, though, it's really just, staying into I don't know what school you go to, but talking to other people in your class that are also trying to recruit. So a lot of times they're in the know, right? Otherwise, through your own networking efforts. You can also one thing you can do, which is a bit more manual, you can actually look up the Vault prestige rankings for investment banking, and they actually list out the top 50 banks out there, which are all the bulge bracket, elite boutique, and middle market banks. And then you can literally just manually go to every single one of the career pages and see if their summer 2022 openings are still up. Okay. Now it is getting late for summer 2022. So RBC, for example, is already recruiting for summer 2023, right? But I would say at this stage in the process, pretty much all the bulge bracket and elite boutique banks are done, if not almost done or very close to being done. If you're not in their interview processes at this point, you're probably not going to get in to their interviews. Okay. So some middle market banks, I think, are still recruiting and will probably be recruiting for, maybe 1 or 2 more months. If by the time you get to halfway through your junior year, if you're still recruiting, then you're probably going to have to look at some of the regional boutiques. Okay. Then everything I said earlier to Stanley still applies, which is you want to just try to get into the best regional boutique possible. And then you can always recruit again for a full-time offer at the end of summer 2022, right? Because you're going to start full-time for the summer of 2023, right? So that process will happen probably in August of 2022, okay? And the better bank that you have on your resume, the easier it's going to be to recruit for full-time, okay? So hopefully that helps. Shivani on YouTube has the next question. He asks, any tips for seniors to break into investment banking? Background, asset management internship, and tax internship at corporate and Big Four. Yeah, Shivani. So you're kind of in the same boat as Stanley from earlier, right? So, it looks like you have some internship experience, which is great. I think from there, at where you are now, since you're a senior and it's already October, most of the top 50 banks, the bulge bracket, elite boutique, and middle market banks, they're pretty much done with full-time hiring for the 2022 start class, okay? Because they've been looking since early August, and that's when they found out which interns are actually coming back and which interns are not. And they only have, typically a few spots left that aren't filled. And so they go out and try to fill this as soon as possible. So at this point in the process, you're probably looking at a regional boutique bank. And again, there's a huge range in terms of the quality of these banks. There's thousands of these, right? So you need to figure out which ones are the more solid ones and which ones are very mom and pop and probably not where you want to start your career. And then you need to network with them. Okay. Also, a lot of these smaller regional boutique banks, they don't have as structured of a recruiting process. And so it's not like you can just go on their website and like see a job posting and apply to that, right? Like a lot of times, like these jobs might not be posted, and you have to network your way in to get into their processes. So again, like typically, like the way we help start that process for the seniors that we're working with is we have a database with like over 1,000 investment banks. This is our own database that we built. Over 1,000 investment banks in the country. What are their names? What are their websites? What are their email syntaxes? And then also like what major financial centers do they actually have offices in? So like, for example, you can filter and say, oh, I only want to work in New York, or I only want to work in, I don't know, San Francisco or LA. And it'll come up with like a list of, dozens to hundreds of banks, depending on the city that you want to work in. And then we also show you like how to evaluate these banks and what to look for so that you can stack rank the opportunities. And then usually what we recommend is you just start from like, let's say you break them down to like, oh, these are tier 3, these are tier 4, these are tier 5, these are tier 6, so on and so forth. I would start by reaching out to all the tier 3 banks first, and then like just move downstream on an as needed basis, because you don't want to end up getting an offer from a smaller bank first when you haven't had a chance to talk to some of the better banks yet, because a lot of times these offers are exploding. Okay, so if you need help with that, again, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to walk you through it. Okay. But let me come back to Instagram real quick for a second. So Adam Funk asks, what should students be doing specifically right now to prepare for 2023 recruiting? Yeah, Adam, it's a great question. So you might have missed the beginning of this Q&A, but I kind of talked about like there's like really 5 things that matter, right? There's keeping up your grades, right? Again, if you have at least a 3.7 or above, that would be ideal. If you only have a 3.5 or above, that's okay, not horrible, but I would say that's average. And then if you have lower than that, then it's suboptimal. But like if you have at least a 3.0, then I would say you still have a shot. I haven't really seen anyone get into banking with lower than a 3.0, so you definitely don't want to go there. Okay, so grades is one, super important. There's also networking, right? You got to start networking ASAP, okay? Because if we're only a few months out, like networking is a months-long process. This is a long lead time item. You don't want to wait until the last second to do it, okay? And then aside from that, like I don't know what your resume looks like right now. Like what shape is it? Like if you already have a lot of relevant experience, then great, right? If you don't have that much relevant experience, yeah, then you want to use like these next few months that you still have to get at least one more internship, because you could easily fit one internship into like a 2 or 3 month window, right? And so, what I would consider to be a relevant internship would be, something like small investment bank, small private equity firm, like even like a search fund. It could be an evaluation firm. It could be equity research. It could be corporate development. So there's a lot of things you can do, right? Asset management, someone said that earlier. That's like can be still somewhat relevant, but depends on what you're doing. Not as good as some of the other things that I just mentioned, though, right? So if you can get at least one more of those, so you have something relevant on your resume to point to. Like nowadays, it's competitive that a lot of students that we're seeing who have a lot of success through recruiting, they actually have not just one internship, but like on average, we're seeing like probably 2 to 3 relevant internships on people's resume. Okay, at least for like the most competitive. And so that definitely is important. So everything we talked about so far is related to like what it takes to actually get selected for the interview, right? And of course, while you're doing that in the background, simultaneously, you also need to be preparing for the interview too, because you can't wait until you get the actual interview to start preparing for the interview. Like at that point, it will be too late, right? Like most of the time, if you get invited to an interview, they're only going to give you a few days of notice, or maybe like a week max, right? And so a lot of people start cramming at that point, and it's like you run out of time, right? And so what I would do is like I would start preparing the stories you want to use for the behavioral interviews right now, and then also like learn all the technicals, right? So again, like if you missed this earlier, we have that free course that we just launched, which actually walks you through every single one of these areas that I have, right? So like if you're a September 2023 recruiting, go and download this free course and go through it. Like you should be able to go through the entire thing in like probably 5 to 10 hours. Okay. And so that'll like give you a huge head start and just a lot more clarity on what else you need to do after that. All right. And so again, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, you should be able to see the link to the free course in the description of this video. But if you're on Instagram, you can go to our website, and at the top on the menu, there's a link to the free course, and you can download it there. Okay. So hopefully that helps, Adam. But feel free to hit up our team if you have any more questions. We'll be happy to help you out. Let me come back to YouTube for a second. So actually, let me just take a sip of water here. Okay, Harry says, what's the biggest gain in skills / work ethic / time management you've gotten from working in IB? Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to define like the biggest gain in skills and work ethic and time management, but what is your work ethic and your time management skills are going to be probably because you're going to be working on average 80, 90, 100 hours. I mean, in the current market environment where all the banks are super busy, there's so many deals out there that need to be done, and most of the banks actually are finding that they don't have enough junior people, and they're trying to hire more, and they're raising salaries and they're raising the bonuses to try to attract more talent. Like, you're going to be pretty busy, right? And whatever job you get after banking, like, because most people don't stay in banking forever, but like whatever job you end up going into after banking is probably not going to be as intense as banking. Like, definitely not as long in terms of the hours, right? And so relatively speaking, actually makes all of your subsequent jobs feel, I don't want to say like a walk in the park, but it's a lot more like relaxed, right? I think like the pace is a lot slower too. And so that basically makes you like really stand out against, your other colleagues at work and your coworkers, and also in front of your bosses, right? Like, your boss is going to see like how hard you're able to work and how quickly you get things done and how much you're able to multitask and, do multiple projects at the same time. So those are all things that are going to help you for the rest of your career. That's why like a lot of these soft skills that you gain from banking, like they become very foundational to just like how successful you're going to become afterwards, right? Like, a lot of people feel like banking gives you great exit opportunities, and it does give you that. And that's part of the reason why a lot of people that start their career in banking are so successful. But the other thing is just like, they paid their dues. Like, they put in the time. Like, a lot of people say, oh, like, I would never work 80 to 100 hours a week. And yeah, not everyone's cut out for that. But like, if you're willing to just like kind of suck it up and do it for even just 2 years while you're still young and you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't have like a whole lot of obligations or responsibilities. Yeah, like, the time to work hard is when you're young. Okay, like, as you get older and you have a family, it becomes harder and harder to do that, right? And so if you can pay your dues up front, you get to reap that benefits for like the rest of your career, right? And so I'm going on a little bit of tangent, but I mean, other than that, like other skills that you gain from banking are just, we've been talking about the soft skills, but there's a lot of hard skills too, like financial modeling. Like, there's no better place to learn how to build financial models than like in banking, right? Like, you become basically like a ninja at just Excel and at PowerPoint, and those are like just really, really important and critical skills no matter what job you go into, right? And you become very analytical. Also, you learn how to like kind of think about businesses from like a strategic point of view, and you understand like what are the key drivers that really make a business successful, at least in the eyes of an investor. And that's always an invaluable skill set or knowledge to have no matter what company you go and work for, right? And so those are some of the things off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's a bunch of others that I'm missing. Okay. Let me go to the next question. This one's also coming from YouTube. So Gotham asks, what do you think about ECM/DCM investment banking? Is it a good career option? And is it any different in terms of workload and work-life balance? Yeah, Gotham, it's a good question here. So it depends. Like, look, first of all, I would just say, like, if you get banking, period, out of yourself. Okay, like, is it a good career option? I mean, yeah, like, it pays you, 6 figures out of college. I mean, with the new pay raises that a lot of the banks have put in place, where first-year analysts are making anywhere from $100 to $110 to even $120,000 in some places like Evercore. And then like the bonus is another 50 to 100% of your base salary, right? So like 50% of 110, like I think you're making $165,000 your first year, and you would be at the 50% level if you're like the worst analyst in your class, like you're the bottom bucket analyst, right? If you're a top bucket and you're getting 100%, you're getting paid $220,000 to $240,000 your first year out of school. So it's like, is that a career option? Yeah, I think that's freaking phenomenal, because the average college grad in the United States is making like $50,000 right now. Okay. So if you can make like 3 to 4x or more what your classmates are making, like obviously that's pretty darn good. Like some people don't make that much annually for like their entire careers. And you're doing that right out of school, right? Now, I think like sometimes ECM and DCM get hated on a little bit, especially on the internet, in places like Wall Street Oasis and these online forums, is that a lot of people think like, oh, well, it's hard to exit from groups like ECM or DCM into the buy side, into like private equity, and that's true. Like it's harder to exit into the buy side from ECM or DCM role, but not everyone wants to go to the buy side, right? But if you want to go to the buy side, then yeah, I would say, you should try to get into like some of the other, like whether it's an industry coverage group or even like a product group, like M&A or FSG or even LevFin still works too. Like some of the other groups that will get more of a like a bit more hardcore modeling experience. Okay, because like in ECM and DCM, like to be honest, like you're not doing too much like complicated modeling. Like yes, you're still working in Excel and stuff, but like in my experience, you're updating a lot of like market update charts and slides and tables and graphs and stuff like that. So that's not as transferable of a skill set if you want to go to the buy side. Right? But again, if you don't want to go to the buy side, like there's a lot of other good options coming out of ECM and DCM, right? In terms of like workload and work-life balance, yeah, I do think the workload is a little bit better in capital markets. And so obviously like the work-life balance is going to be a little bit better. Now, it comes in waves, right? Like ebbs and flows, just like anything. Like if you're like doing live deal, like, there's an IPO that you're working on, you're on the ECM team, like you're probably going to be pretty busy leading up to IPO, right? But like typically, like if you're not on a live deal and you're just, doing like pitches and business development work, like then I think it's going to be a lot more chill, right? So, there's trade-offs for sure, right? It depends on how you prioritize things, right? And there's nothing wrong with prioritizing work-life balance as like the most important criteria if that's you, right? Personally, for me, again, going back to what I said earlier, I think like when you're young, that's like the time when you shouldn't be afraid to work a little bit harder, if that's going to allow you to work a little bit less later on, or have a bit easier time later on, right? Like because if you have like a better career trajectory, that's going to mean maybe you make more money, or that's going to mean maybe you can, retire earlier. Like it just makes your life easier later on, or you have more options. You can choose from more job opportunities, and therefore you can set yourself up better in better situations, right? So you're investing a little bit more time and effort up front, but you're reaping the rewards on the back end. Okay. That helps. This question. And by the way, I think this is currently the last question that's in the queue. So if anyone else has more questions, down in the comments, we got a bit more time here, so I'm happy to answer whatever else questions you guys have. Okay. So this next question is from, let's see, Hidana. There we go. Rutagta. Okay, so how do I get analysts and associates to respond to my cold emails? Should I keep emails as short as possible? Don't want to sound like I'm just copy pasting from a template. Yeah. So, Donna, it's not just about keeping your emails as short as possible, right? Like, because people are busy, don't have time to read super long and wordy emails. So you want to get to the point, but at the same time, like, yeah, you want to just um, come off, like you said, as like, oh, I'm just copy pasting from a template, right? So usually, like, you can still have a concise email, but like personalize at least like one part of the email. Usually is like the lead into the email, or if not, then at least like the middle section of the email, based on something that you know about that person, right? Whether it's like the fact that you guys have something in common, or explain like why you decided to reach out to them out of all the people that you could have reached out to, or one thing that we actually teach our students to do is like include just like one or two specific questions that they want to ask this person, and of course those questions have to be logical and make sense based on that person's profile and background, because that like if someone reads your email and they can see like, okay, I understand why they're reaching out to me specifically and not someone else. That's one of the many things that will increase their likelihood to respond to you, right? There are other things that go into that, like, okay, your subject line, like, is it good, right? Like, because sometimes like if your subject line sucks, they don't even open your email in the first place. So not to mention like replying to your email, right? And so a lot of people don't put much thought into subject line. I think subject line is very important. The timing of when you send the email is also important as well, right? You want to send like certain times of the day, people are going to be like more likely to respond, right? And so all of those things matter. And then like last but not least, like you're not always going to get a response right away on your very first try, especially with bankers who are very, very busy. They get a lot of emails, and they actually a lot of times like they're not ignoring you on purpose, but they're so busy with work, and your email is just like a very low priority, right? Because like they have like deals that they're working on or pitches they gotta do, and they have like all these like super short deadlines that they have to meet. A lot of times they say, okay, I saw this email, but I'm not going to do this right now. I'm going to come back to it later. And like it's just, they might forget, right? Like by the time they finish with all of the rest of their work, you're already out of sight, out of mind, and your email's been pushed down to like the third page on their inbox, and they never go back that far, right? And so the point I'm saying is like, a lot of times you're gonna have to follow up, right? People assume that, oh, if I send an email and someone doesn't respond to me, that means they don't want to talk to me. Doesn't necessarily mean that. Sometimes it means they don't want to talk to you, but a lot of times it means that they actually like, or were just too busy at the time when they first saw your email. But if you follow up with them, a second time or a third time even, a lot of times like they'll respond, on the second or third try. And so that would be my advice to you. But like if you want to learn like even more of the specifics of how to kind of like just get higher email response rates, then like again, feel free to reach out to our team, and we're happy to just like talk to you more to see like if or how we might be able to help you. Okay. Because like our like if we were to go through like all of our networking training, like we've got like over 10 hours of it inside of our program. It will just take way too long on this Q&A. Okay. So hopefully that helps. Coming over to Instagram here. So the Brajesh says, I'm a senior in high school. Do I need to apply for summer 2023? Brajesh, good to see that you're starting to think about this stuff so early. But the answer is no. Okay, summer 2023 internships are for current sophomores in college who are going to be graduating in the summer of 2024. If you're currently in high school, you don't really need to be thinking about internships, to be honest. Like there aren't really any like good internships out there for high schoolers that I know of. Like most of the high schoolers that actually have internship experience, in my experience, like they get it from just like friends and family and connections. And so usually like you don't get a whole lot of responsibilities on those jobs, right? And so the most important thing you can do as a high school student, if you want to get into investment banking, is actually to just make sure that you get into the best college you could possibly get into. Okay, so if you're like a senior in high school right now, I don't know if you've already submitted your college applications or not. I think you might have because it's already October. But like if you're just waiting to hear back, if you haven't submitted and you're working on your applications, then like do everything you can to do the best job possible on those applications and get into like a target school. If you can get into a target school, you're going to have a much easier time breaking into investment banking than if you were in a non-target school. Okay. Now, if you already submit all of your applications and you're just waiting to hear back, then like do some research on the different schools that you're waiting to hear back from to see like, who actually has a better program for sending people into investment banking, right? And like, if you don't, I mean, you can do that by talking to the students that are already going to school, especially if they have a business school or business major. Like, talk to the students in those programs to see, like, hey, like, what's it like recruiting for banking from your school, and they should be able to tell you, right? The other thing you could do is go on LinkedIn and search for the school page. And then under each school's LinkedIn page, there's like an alumni section, and you can click on that. And then you can search, you can filter for people that actually have like investment banking in their profile. And then you can like do like a quick count of like, okay, how many alumni have they sent into investment banking, right? You can even look at that by year. So you can look at like just the most recent graduating classes, like, hey, how many people did they send into banking last year? How many people did they send into banking the year before that? What about the year before that? Like look through like the last 3 or 4 years, and that should give you a good sense for like how likely it is to break into banking from that school, and also like how many alumni from the school actually work in banking, because that's going to make your networking efforts easier down the road, right? And I know you just said you know you have the work ethic, but you'll likely get into a non-target. So yeah, like especially if you're going to a non-target, then I would say it's even more important to do research on the alumni base, because there's some non-targets out there that are actually still pretty good at sending people into investment banking, and then there are like the vast majority of non-targets out there are not good at sending people into banking. So like it can still make a difference even amongst the non-target schools, which one you end up at. Okay, so if you want to like learn more about that, again, like feel free to schedule a call with one of our alumni who's already gone through the process, and we can talk to you more about it. Okay, and also like look, a lot of alumni that we work with actually went to non-target schools themselves, or currently go to non-target schools, and they get into investment banking. So like if you want to talk to like a non-target school student and hear about their experience, that might help you as well. Okay. Another question here on LinkedIn, or sorry, not on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Kaser Orbacher. Okay, so is Washington Lee a target school? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so, Kaser. But I do know that there are people from Washington and Lee who have gotten into investment banking, though. So it's not that you can't get into banking from Washington and Lee. In fact, I think I might have worked with one of them. Trying to see here. I feel like I worked with a student from Washington and Lee before, and then she ended up getting into investment banking, unless I am thinking about the wrong person. I'm not sure. But bottom line, though, either way, I don't think it is. Oh, yeah, here we go. I found her. Yeah. So, yeah, like, I worked with a Washington Lee student, and she was the class of 2023. So she just finished going through the summer 2022 recruiting process, and she ended up getting an offer from Houlihan Lokey, okay, which is like one of the top middle market banks out there. So it's not a target school, but you definitely still can't get into banking if you play your cards right and you know what you're doing. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Bridgesh says, thank you so much. No problem, man. Does anyone else have any other questions? Because I'm looking in the queue here. I don't see any more on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. It looks like on Instagram, I've cleared through all the questions here as well. So I'll wait a couple more minutes to see if you guys have any more questions, because I have about another 10 minutes or so if you guys do. But again, guys, if you have more questions, even if you don't have it right now, or you don't think of it right now, you think of it later, and you want to talk to us more, feel free to book a free virtual coffee chat with our alumni, and they can like talk to you about their recruiting experience and walk you through just their advice, having just been in your shoes. You can also download the free course, again, that we just launched. It's only been out for like a few days, and we've already had a bunch of people download it. And so it's really good stuff in there. Like I said, it's probably between anywhere from like 5 to 10 hours of just free training for you guys. Okay, free value to show you guys just like how it is that we typically do things. And so it's completely free. I encourage you guys to all go and download it. You can see in the link of the description to the video here, or if you're on the Instagram, you can go and grab it at the top of our website. You go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com. The street's abbreviated to ST. And at the menu at the top, there's a free course section, and you just click on that, and you should be able to download this. Okay. With that said, I don't think there's any more questions. Actually, okay, Casey just dropped another one. Hey, how do you derive the Black-Scholes equation? Yeah, Casey, so there's like a complex formula for that. But to be honest, like you don't ever really use the Black-Scholes equation in banking. And so I don't think that's something that you really need to know. And in fact, like if you want to know the answer, like I don't even know the answer off the top of my head because I never had to use it in banking. I think I used the Black-Scholes like one time when I was working at a startup and I was on the finance team. But yeah, that's not really something that's like, you know, in my wheelhouse or like just it's not really relevant to banking. We don't teach it to our students. So if you're asking for something else, then like I think you can go do some research online. But just got asked in the interview. Got it. Probably not a banking interview, I'm guessing. Right? It might be like an asset management interview, is my guess. But yeah, sorry I couldn't help more there. All right. See if there's any more questions. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so we're gonna wrap it up here. Again, if you guys want to talk to us, feel free to reach out to us. You can book that free virtual coffee chat, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and message me. I check my LinkedIn messages pretty much every single day, and so I'll try to get back to you in a timely manner. I do get a lot of messages from students, and so forgive me if I can't respond right away. But otherwise, looking forward to hopefully meeting all of you at some point. And I wish you guys all the best of luck with your investment banking recruiting process, whether it's for summer 2022 or 2023, or maybe something else altogether. All right. And we'll be back with another monthly Q&A for you on the first Tuesday of November. Okay. So stay on the lookout for that, and we'll talk to you guys soon.